Members take their seats, please. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the second meeting, I think, of this session, and I would ask the secretary to call, or the clerk to call the roll, please.
Representative Baker. Here. Representative Blanton.
Present.
Representative Bowling.
Here.
Representative Bridget. Here. Representative Chester Burton.
Present.
Representative Dossett.
Present.
Representative Flannery. Here. Representative Fugate.
Here.
Representative Hancock.
Here.
Representative Johnson.
Here.
Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Miles. Here. Representative Moore.
Here.
Representative Smith. Here. Representative Watkins.
Present.
Representative Wesley. Here. Representative Whitaker. Here. Representative Williams.
Here.
Representative Bauman.
Present.
Representative White. And Chair Gooch.
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum. We're duly constituted to do business. Does anyone have any announcements or any introductions? Seeing none, I do have. I have Audrey Poston from Webster County, who's going to be shadowing me here today, so let's make her welcome. And I'm going to warn, just as the White House staffers told us a year or so ago about President Biden, that behind the scenes, I'm really hard to keep up with, so I just want to let everyone know. Thank you. First, we have two bills on today. First is House Bill 88, Representative Emily Callaway. Please come to the table, recognize yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. I am Emily Callaway, and I represent the 37th District, which is portions of Jefferson and Bullitt counties. Thank you, Chairman, for giving me a little bit of your time today.
Sure.
Especially because it's really just to clear up some confusion regarding our waste management boards. We have specific statute. In fact, I've only known our waste management board, I guess affectionately, as the 109 board, because we have specific statute that directs our waste management boards about procedures and term limits and appointments. So because we have this, we want to make sure that we honor the intent of this. And there was a little bit of confusion about the term limits and individuals staying on once their term has expired. So we want to make sure that our consolidated governments are actively pursuing members of this board from the community. Right now, it's kind of even difficult to find the positions on the website. I reached out to one of the board members and asked them if they could show me how to apply for this. And
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Are you okay?
absolutely.
Okay. Are there any questions? I think it's very simple bill. It's only a few lines. With that, I would ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Representative Baker. Yes. Representative Bauman.
Aye.
Representative Blanton.
Aye.
Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Bridges.
Yes.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative Dossett. Representative Flannery. Representative Fugate.
Yes.
Representative Hancock.
Yes.
Representative Johnson.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Miles. Yes. Representative Moore.
Yes.
Representative Smith. Yes. Representative Watkins.
Aye.
Representative Wesley.
Yes.
Representative Whitaker.
Yes.
Representative White. Representative Williams.
Yes.
And Chair Gooch.
Yes.
Pass it.
Okay, bill passes with favorable expression. That same should pass on the floor. So thank you very much. Next, we have House Bill 346, Representative Derek Lewis. Now, I think we do have a committee substitute on this bill. There's a motion and a second. All in favor of adopting the committee sub, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, we are, from this point, operating from the committee sub. So, Representative Lewis, introduce yourself and any guests and proceed.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Derek Lewis, State Representative of the 90th District, proudly serving Leslie, Clay, and Laurel counties. I do have a guest.
Good morning. My name's Adam Goebel. I'm with Stahl, Keenan, Ogden.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. So I chair administrative regulations, and earlier this year we had a somewhat contentious issue regarding air emission fees. And so at the time, the governor's office was proposing this regulation, and it was met with pushback from some of the distillers, which have emergency generators. So the Division of Air Quality requires, if you have an emergency generator and it's stationary, right, it's not doing it, you're having this for worker safety. They were charging some of these organizations anywhere from $12,000 to $611,000 a year to have these. This was based on the cabinet's interpretation, and so this bill does two things. Number one, it carves out emergency generators from statute, and then also, backup generators from fees when they operate 100 hours or less for non-emergency uses, including maintenance and testing. But the bill also removes an existing 4,000 ton per source cap on calculating emission fees. This will lead to a reduction for 99% of Division of Air Quality permitted business that pay them. I see this as a win-win compromise. It was something.
Second. We have a motion and a second. I do have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Bridges.
Representative Lewis, we've talked about this because we sat on administrative regs, and I agree with the intent of this bill. I think you know that we've discussed it, and eliminating the temporary generators, that's understandable. But on page 2, line 4, the cabinet shall not create an upper limit in the amount of actual emissions. Can you tell me how that will affect the utility companies and what that will do to ratepayers?
You want to handle that?
Sure. The intent there, that's the provision of the bill that's going to reduce the per ton fee that is assessed on all sources for air emissions. And that was part of the proposed regulation that was before the Administrative Regulatory Committee. So what will happen is that by removing the cap that currently exists, the per ton fee goes down, and it'll go down for nearly every single source. Approximately 712 sources pay emissions fees. Based on the cabinet's analysis last fall, that would mean that 708 of those 712 would see either no reduction or would stay the same or would have a reduction in their fees. So if we're going to reduce the per ton fee, which in Kentucky is higher than a number of other states that surround it, there's only two ways to do it. You can either remove this cap where there are a couple, there will be some that may end up paying more, although the per ton fee goes down, but then they have the ability to address that any particular increase through however they may manage their finances. The only other way would be to broaden it, and then you have small businesses paying much more. So that was the compromise and the way that the cabinet addressed it. So it's not clear because obviously utilities are currently reducing their emissions. So as you reduce your emissions, the per ton, you don't pay as much. So as far as how they manage their emissions and then how they may manage their finances, that may be the impact. But we know that based on the cabinet's analysis last fall, there's only going to be a couple that could potentially have an impact. But if you're going to reduce the per ton fee for everyone, for nearly everyone, that was the best solution.
And I'll just add, out of the 712 entities, 708, I believe, we're going to experience reductions. And Representative Bridges, you and I have looked at this pretty in depth. We went over it several months, and this goes back to an initiative in the Bevin administration that they looked at a version of this, and of course the current governor's administration tried this as well, and they are neutral on this bill. But as he was saying, I went back and I went through the statement of consideration. So whenever a regulation's proposed, right, you have a statement of consideration that goes through where the cabinet addresses issues. And so the cabinet pushed back a little bit on some of the numbers and specifically said it is inappropriate to assume that the increase for TVA will continue to be 1.3 million annually, as even without these controls, TVA's emissions have decreased each year. I'll also note, TVA, they did issue comments, but the other four, or I think there's four altogether, the other ones have not opposed this language. And TVA has not directly opposed it either.
Comment, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I understand that. I've talked to TVA and the other four. The problem is their idea is we'll just pass it on to ratepayers. They won't absorb that cost. They're going to pass it on to our constituents as ratepayers. And it seems like it doesn't matter if it's 4 or 14 or 400 to isolate a small group of people to carry the bulk of the load. I struggle with that, especially when my area is very dependent upon the ones that are going to be affected. So it's my constituents that's going to be affected. And while, when you start doing this, it just encourages companies like TVA to continue to, as the department says, they're continuing to reduce their emissions. And the way they do that is by shutting down coal-fired plants and converting them over to other sources. And that not only affects my area, but it also affects areas of the state too. So there's more than just this one sector that's affected on that. And I've just got some major concerns with that. And I feel like there ought to be some caps or something put on this. I know y'all have talked about that, and it was declined. That option's not available to them. But to select 4 or 5 utilities and let them carry the bulk of the load is just, I have a hard time seeing how that's fair. So anyway, I just share that with you because I know the ratepayers at the end are going to end up absorbing this cost, or, and as you say, to encourage them to go down this path, I think it's going to affect our coal industry as a whole too. Thank you.
I would add one point on that too, and that the permits, because when you're funding the AIR program, you're talking about administrative resources as far as that it takes to permit these things. So the entities like that have these much more complicated permits that will have more emissions, it's those entities that generally will have to bear because they have the greater administrative costs associated with permitting these types of units. So that's another part of it when we're talking about burden. Should it go all the way out to very small businesses? Because we do have this situation that we're dealing with here where just for essentially saving lives as far as preventing fires from happening, preventing worker safety, you have people that if you follow the EPA regulations and if you follow actually the way the cabinet deals with emergency engines, because there's like 1,500 emergency engines standing alone, you don't have to have a permit for them. You don't have to pay emissions fees on them. It's just you have this anomaly to where now if you add an emergency engine to a certain unit, you end up paying $600,000, whereas otherwise, standing alone for each of those units, you shouldn't be paying anything. So if we're talking about just wondering what the burden is here, there are a couple sources that may end up paying more, although they can reduce their emissions, but they also have the much more complicated permits and then the greater emissions. And it seems like if you're just shifting burdens, that was the compromise that the cabinet found acceptable, and it was acceptable when this was going through committee as a regulation.
Okay, but putting on this cap or how we're handling that, does that in any way disincentivize someone from actually lowering their emissions or?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. No, actually, it would incentivize them to reduce their emissions further. And that's what you're seeing through TVA, which has gradually decreased. So the numbers that was reflected in the regulation that was proposed was based off 2022. But in the statement of consideration, it was gradually going down their emissions were each year. So this would actually incentivize them to lower their emissions.
Okay, we have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Representative Blanton?
Just out of curiosity, since we're talking about 4 and we know TVA's one, do you know who the other 3 are?
Sure. So it's LG and E. Was it East Kentucky Power?
Yeah, I think East Kentucky.
East Kentucky Power, Big Rivers, TVA.
Okay, thank you.
Of those, the 3 of those outside of TVA did not, issue comments at all on it. Just TVA, and they have not directly came out and opposed the bill.
Okay. Representative Fugit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, Representative Lewis, could this raise electric rates where we live?
Kentucky Power is not affected. I reached out to them before I filed the bill.
So it will not raise our rates?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Miles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I ask a question of the sponsor? Representative Lewis, I assume that by being chair of administrative regs that you've done your due diligence on this and you would not have brought this forward without having a consensus of the partners, correct?
Yes. So when the regulation was proposed, and of course, you being in leadership understand the purpose of Administrative Regulation Review Subcommittee is we are making sure that any regulation proposed is in line with Chapter 13A, meaning it is following what we pass, right, the intent. And so when this regulation came up, I didn't love it on the emergency generator side because I didn't think it was fair. I mean, it's for workers' safety. Why should we do that? However, I thought the cabinet was well within their right to do it, and I was going to stand by the regulation proposed, but I had already planned to file this bill because I don't think emergency generators should be included. But yes, this went on for several months.
May I follow up?
Certainly.
Like you said, my area specific is in the Big Rivers area, and they have not contacted me with concerns of this, so I will be supporting the measure.
Thank you.
Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question about those caps of non-emergency usage, the 50 hours and the 100 hours. Are we looking at something, is that kind of just right based on what they're using right now? Is that excessive? Is that not enough? Where does that fall in line with the current need of the maintenance and testing, but also the potential use of those?
That's entirely consistent with the longstanding EPA regulation about how they define it. So all the sources that have these emergency engines are completely used to running these emergency engines that way. When you're talking about these emergency engines, they run for 2 hours or less, and they have to just to make sure they still work. Because if you obviously have the emergency, you need to make sure they work. So everyone is used. This definition did not just come out of thin air. This is one that's been around for more than 20 years.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of, I think it's on the same parallel path, but I've been looking for an opportunity to bring it up since it's happened in the last couple of months. And I think a couple of people have made reference to the fear of not having caps. And one illustration that I've had to deal with for the last 60 days is the environmental surcharge that we have placed on us in Eastern Kentucky on our bills. And I researched it back. We passed it here in the legislators, given the ability on coal-fired generator plants to have funding to upkeep the coal-fired generators, which I'm fine with. The difficulty that I had is by them taking it from 4% to 19% in 1 month during the Arctic storm. So we already had an increase in usage, but then we had a 15% tax put on my people back home. So I had stories of $300 bill going to $600 from people on fixed income. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I believe the point is we pass these things. If we don't pay attention, maybe we do, Representative Lewis, we do a monitor. Maybe every year we look and see how it's affected, how it's affected our people. I think because that was this law was passed years ago, Mr. Chairman. You're more aware of it than I am. But the surcharge that we allowed to be put on there didn't have a cap. And I've asked the company to come in, and I even asked for the numbers. Can you show me what your additional cost was and how you divided it up to cause these bills to go up? Because this is reality. When we talk about people at home that are paying these bills, and I'm not criticizing this piece. I know you're doing the right thing. I'm saying this is how it starts. I'm just saying I think we need to be aware of monitoring it every year to see the effect, the cause and the effect. Does that make sense? Am I right there? Because some of the questions was without a cap, without a cap on this bill that was passed in this legislature, we've seen a 15% tax put on my people back home through the co-op, and it wasn't the co-op's 15% tax. It was the Kentucky Power company that passes it on, so they're not having to answer for it. My co-op's having to get 2,500, 3,000 calls why their bills doubled. So does that make sense, Representative Lewis?
Absolutely, Representative Smith. And just for clarification for the members, that what Representative Smith is talking about is not included in this bill. That is not that.
I said I found a place to talk about it.
Right.
Maybe I should have said I have a conversation, Mr. Chairman, but I apologize. I'm not trying to hijack the bill. I'm just giving you an illustration with no caps.
I think you bring up a very good point. Of course, my people are affected the same way. And I do think it's important that we're cognizant of what we do up here and what we pass. And so in the same vein of the committee that I chair, the subcommittee that I chair, the Administrative Regulation Review Subcommittee, you know, we meet every month. It's not just like while we're in session. We're in once a month to look up every regulation and study every regulation and make sure the intent's there. So in regard to what you're talking about, I'd certainly be willing to partner with you on that, and as our floor leader Rudy says, we're the legislature. We can do anything. So,
Thank you, Representative Smith. And we all know the effects of the fuel adjustment clause, and that's kind of an automatic pass through. I will say though, and on a little bit of a defensive mode, last week we met at the old Capitol. I was recognized as the only person that probably had served in the old Capitol, and now you bring up a bill that was passed by this legislature, and I believe that even predated me. So I wanted to clarify that the fuel adjustment clause has been around a lot longer than I have. So, Representative Watkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really briefly, I just wanted to clarify one of the entities that I think I heard you mention in terms of that may have to pay for the exclusion. Is LG&E included as one of those entities?
it is, Representative, but they are not opposing this bill and did not oppose the regulation either.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second on the bill. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Representative Baker,
May I explain my vote, Chair?
Certainly.
I'll be a yes today, but I'd like to continue the conversation on this issue. Thank you.
Representative Ballman,
Yes.
Representative Blanton,
Aye.
Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Bridges,
Explain my vote.
Certainly.
I'm going to have to be a no because for my constituents in my area, I understand that there's some areas it doesn't affect, but when it affects your own and they're worried about it, and Chair Lewis, you know, you and I've been on the administrative rates longer than you have, so we do understand this, and there's no hard feelings there, but I do have to stand up for my constituents and the potential impact it could make on them of an unforeseen consequence, and I would urge you to reconsider putting some caps on those utilities. If the cabinet is having a problem supporting financially, waiving fees is not the answer either, just because from what I understand the permitting is too complicated for the smaller users, and that should not be an excuse. So with that, I cast a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Chester Burton,
I'm going to pass.
Representative Dossett,
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, can I record a vote on House Bill 88?
Yes. Do we have to do that at the end? Let's do that at the end.
Yes, thank you.
Representative Flannery, Representative Fugate,
Yes.
Representative Hancock,
Yes.
Representative Johnson,
Yes.
Representative McCool,
Yes.
Representative Miles,
Yes.
Representative Moore,
Yes.
Representative Smith, Representative Watkins,
May I explain my vote, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm a yes on this, but I would like to continue the conversation just to understand future rate hikes for my constituents.
Yes, sir.
Representative Wesley,
I'd like to be a yes right now, but I'll ask Representative Lewis about my area later. Thank you.
Representative Whitaker,
Yes.
Representative White, Representative Williams,
I explain my vote.
Yes.
I'm going to be a yes on this, and I think this is a great highlight of the cabinet making some arbitrary regulation and the members having to deal with it. So I'm a yes today.
and Chair Gooch.
Yes. Of course, the bill does pass with favorable expression that same should pass. Thank you, members. Anyone else have anything to bring before the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you want to record it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to record a yes vote on House Bill 88, please.
Okay. Would you like us to recognize you've been here today, too? Okay, we had to, yeah, anyone else want to declare a yes vote on, or a no vote on that bill? Okay, let me say, members, that next week, we're probably going to have more bills. The last two, we've only had 2 bills each meeting. So I try to start at 9 if we can get everything done. And luckily, the last 2 days, we've been able to do that in the first half hour. But if next meeting is going to be longer or with some more controversial or complicated bills, we may have to meet at 8:30. So I just wanted to, yeah, all right, I'm sorry. I will avoid that if I can. But at any rate, I need a motion to adjourn. Motion second? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.